I'm tired, boss.
She is in
I
Minneapolis.
want to start out by addressing the loss of life that we saw here in Minneapolis today. Any loss of life is a tragedy, and I think all of us can agree that in this situation...
Right off the bat, remember when she was at the military base in Texas, yep, that terrorist tried to kill one of our boys, and I'm just glad she didn't get him. Yeah.
It was preventable. I've spoken to the president today on the situation here on the ground. I also just got off the phone a little while ago with Governor Walz and spoke to him as well. I want to reiterate first with all of you the facts of what happened today. At 10:25 a.m. Central Time, Immigration and Customs Enforcement were carrying out lawful operations here in Minneapolis. Because of the adverse weather that Minneapolis has seen in recent snow, one of the vehicles became stuck and ensnared in the snow.
Regular Minneapolis weather. It's January. I don't know why they keep saying adverse, like it's unusual storm or something.
Attempting to push out this vehicle, and when a mob of agitators that were harassing them all day began blocking them in, shouting at them, and impeding law enforcement operations. ICE officers and agents approached the vehicle of the individual in question, who was blocking the officers in with her vehicle, and she had been stalking and impeding their work all throughout the day. ICE agents repeatedly ordered her to get out of the car and to stop obstructing law enforcement, but she refused to obey their commands. She then proceeded to weaponize her vehicle, and she attempted to run a law enforcement officer over. This appears as an attempt to kill or to cause bodily harm to agents.
Massive concession from the administration. Do you know what this means? This means they're now worried they're actually going to have to fight it in court. Their original rhetoric that she's a domestic terrorist, etc., that was the gunzo, fascist, we can do no wrong rhetoric. Now she's backed off because she's scared. Hold on a second. Like, this is going to come up in court potentially. So now we're still lying. They're still lying. But now we're going to take like the position we would make to defend ourselves in court. We're going to pretend like it's a regular cop involved incident and not some insane gonzo hyperbolic bullshit.
An act of domestic terrorism. The ICE
I guess we're keeping with that.
Officer, fearing for his life and the other officers around him and the safety of the public, fired defensive shots. He used his training to save his own life and that of his colleagues.
When I fear being run over, so I quickly fire 3 shots through the side window of the car.
Treated at a local hospital, has been released and is now with family. I encourage the American people at this point in time to pray for him, but also to pray for the deceased's family and her loved ones. Today alone in this country, there have been 4 different domestic terrorist attacks on federal officers by the ramming of vehicles. 3 of them happened here in Minneapolis. We've seen over 100 of these vehicle rammings happen in just recent weeks, and this must stop. ICE alone is facing a 1,300% increase in assaults against them and an 8,000% increase in death threats against all of them. In fact, the very same officer...
Yeah, this is not going to be interesting again until reporters start asking questions. Yeah, in Minneapolis, the Attorney General needs to immediately obliterate that police officer, that ICE officer. It is time. It's time. They have switched up the tone. Initially, they thought this was just going to be another thing they could aura farm off. Now they're like, oh, looks like we're digging our heels in. She's not backing off the point at all. Tonally, it's a shift, but she's still holding by all the same points. Saying the guy had to go to the hospital. This is the shooting, by the way. She turned away and slowly drove past him, and he just fired directly in through the side window. I don't know why they keep saying he had to go to the hospital. Like, what bullshit medical cause are they going to make up for that? Are they going to say his toe got run over? It didn't. You can see in the video, it didn't get run over. Are they going to say it was like emotion? Like, what? There's clear footage from like 50 angles. You know, maybe he had hearing damage from firing the pistol. They will never, ever back off. Like I said in the earlier segment, we are going to hear the phrase defensive from Kristi Noem at some point. They could do anything. ICE could pull a woman over, strip her bare, and her on the street, and they would defend it. There is absolutely no line. They're animals, and like wild animals, they have to be caged. That's it. I'm sorry. Like, you can't, there is no... You think I'm being hyperbolic. I'm not. They cannot back off any point. There is no line where they will go, oh, you know, well, this was clearly a step too far, and to preserve the perceived integrity of our institution, we need to... No, they won't do that. They won't. If they are not punished for this, that is a message to every one of the tens of thousands of ICE agents that they can do this too. If they do not charge him and arrest him, they are telling all the rest of these guys they really can get away with this. They will be complicit in future murders. There is absolutely no line they will not defend. They won't. Noam already said he's with family and out of state. They can still issue an arrest warrant, and they can still demand collaboration from other police departments.
Officer who was attacked today had previously been dragged by an anti-ICE rioter who had rammed him with a car and drug him back in June.
Tragic.
He sustained injuries at that time as well. And let me remind you why we're all here in this city today and why we've been here. In communities across this country and here in Minneapolis, we're just enforcing the laws that we have in this country. For years under President Biden, tens of millions of dangerous criminal illegal aliens, terrorists and suspected terrorists were allowed to invade our country over our southern border. They were allowed to steal, to defraud, and to perpetuate violence against American citizens. Regardless of who your mayor or who your governor is, President Trump promised every single American that he would make America safe again. He promised every single American that he would work to protect them from dangerous criminals. Since Governor Walz has been in charge of Minnesota, we have seen homicides go up by over 50%. That's also during Mayor Frye's tenure as well. Since President Trump took office, Governor Walz has released...
Governor Walz, you are not running for re-election. You are exiting public life soon. Do everything. Don't be a fucking pussy. You can do whatever you want.
Over 470 violent criminals back onto the streets here in Minneapolis. He has another 680 of them still within his jurisdiction that he could give to us today to face the consequences for their crimes. Because Governor Walz and Mayor Frye refuse to protect Minnesotans, and instead they protect these criminals, that's why we are here. And we didn't just show up yesterday, we've always been here. But we're surging operations because of the dangerous situation we see in this country, and because we're no longer going to allow illegal criminals to damage and harm, to kill, to sexually abuse, to proliferate drugs, and to steal American taxpayers' dollars. This state has faced unprecedented immigration fraud. It's seen unprecedented benefit fraud. Individuals were allowed to come into this country and set up fake companies and fake nonprofits and divert billions of dollars away from American citizens and those vulnerable citizens who truly needed the services from those programs. This city has burned before.
Fucking YouTube video.
And your mayor and your governor let it happen. President Trump is not going to let that happen. He and our federal law enforcement officers are here to bring peace and to bring public safety and to ensure that criminal activity is stopped and that people who perpetuate it will...
They brought the crime. This isn't even about like a lefty versus righty thing. Like, this isn't even about political partisanship. The Minneapolis was fine, and then a gang of unmarked vehicle driving thugs moved in, and now somebody is dead. Like, the amount of violence has objectively increased as a consequence of their behavior.
Face consequences. Since we have been here in recent weeks, we have arrested over 1,500 criminals off of the streets. Our law enforcement has arrested murderers, known and suspected terrorists, child pedophiles, and other brutal criminals that were protected here.
Child pedophiles? So they like other kids? Well, I mean, the devil's in the details, but...
in this city. We should all work together to protect our citizens. We should all protect the men and the women and the families who live here in Minneapolis, who live in Minnesota, and live throughout this entire country. I want to thank you for being here, and I want to thank you for focusing on the important work that our federal officers do and make sure that we're focused on the priorities of this country, and that's making sure that we're keeping people safe. With that, I'll take any questions that you may have.
Secretary, no, Mayor Frye called the claims of self-defense BS. How do you respond to that?
I say that he doesn't know what he's talking about. It's very clear that this individual was harassing and impeding law enforcement operations. Our officer followed his training, did exactly what he's been taught to do in that situation, and took actions to defend himself and defend his fellow law enforcement officers.
Secretary, can you expand too on the agent's injuries? The president said that he's lucky to be alive.
The officer was hit by the vehicle. She hit him. He went to the hospital. A doctor did treat him. He has been released, but he's going to spend some time with.
I don't understand this. There's literally like video from every angle. She didn't hit him. He was walking around afterwards. He was complete. There's no. I guess it doesn't matter, right? Like this isn't any more audacious of a lie than anything else they say. Well, the video contradicts it. Okay, every element of reality contradicts everything they've ever said. It's never stopped them, you know?
This family. I can't, but the FBI will continue the investigation and release more facts when it's appropriate. No, we're following the standard protocol procedures we do in situations like this. When there's an officer-involved shooting, we make sure that we get the facts and that we are getting the statements from everybody involved and make sure that investigators are handling the decision.
Which is why I put out a press conference from Texas 1 hour after the shooting, where I boldly declared every element of the shooting and wrapped the whole thing up for you.
No, we're still out on the streets doing our work to get dangerous criminals off of the streets of Minneapolis.
Can you give us any insight into your conversation with the governor?
You know, Tim and I have known each other for years. We served in Congress together. We both ran for governor the same year and have served as governor at the same times. So we were colleagues, and we discussed what happened here today. We have two very different viewpoints of it. I talked specifically about the fact that we have laws. They need to be enforced. He knows that I believe sanctuary policies have protected criminals and placed a priority of them over the citizens that live here. And he knows we'll continue to do our work, and I encouraged him to work with us. We've never had a cooperative arrangement.
They're treating this like this is just every other. That's what they're betting on. They're treating this like this is just every other time they've killed someone. You know? They're betting it doesn't go beyond this. They've moderated their language just a little bit, but the false slate of facts that they've put forward, what they're going to be arguing for, it's the exact same as before. They've only moderated their tone. They're now pretending that they're not like gleeful about the loss of life, you know? They are betting this doesn't go to court. They're betting that there are no consequences for this. They're just going to get away with it again.
Enforcement here. Whenever we've done investigations, whenever we've done police work, when we've been doing what we can to bring people to justice for the crimes that they commit, we haven't had the cooperation of the state of Minnesota or the city police here under the mayor's direction. If you talk to any of these federal law enforcement officers, they'll say that when they call for backup in a situation, that it's hit and miss. They were grateful today that the police chief and local law enforcement showed up at the scene and helped secure it to make sure that nobody was harmed and that the FBI could do their work. But I would encourage them to work with us, that we could form a partnership that would make sure that individuals have the opportunity to have a safe Minneapolis.
Secretary,
Over here.
Do you stand behind the use of force, and will any of those use of force guidelines be altered or changed in the future?
You know, it's clearly established law that a vehicle driven by a person and used to harm someone is a deadly weapon. Deadly force is perfectly lawful when a threat is faced by a weapon. So I do believe that this officer
Not one of these journalists will call her a liar. Even though they can legally do so, there would be no consequences to doing so. It would be objectively correct for them to do so. Not one of them is going to say, you were lying. We see the video. He was not hit. You're just lying.
his training in this situation, and we'll let the FBI continue the investigation to get it resolved.
So just to be clear, did the shooting happen before or after the vehicle hit the officer?
I know you keep asking that, but that doesn't mean that the FBI is going to give you an answer today. There will be an investigation. We want to make sure that it's factual. What I would ask is that as we go forward from here today, that we all remember that our job is to have peaceful discussions. I'd encourage our local law enforcement and state law enforcement to work with us. We are going to continue to operate here in Minneapolis and in the state of Minnesota to make sure we're going after dangerous criminals. One of the key focuses that we've had here is a focus on individuals who are sexual predators and are involved in child exploitation. When I was just here yesterday, we arrested individuals who
Why? I had a call with one such sexual predator just earlier this day. The president says hello.
were charged with criminal assault and sexual assault and people that exploited children. Why would you want to keep them on your streets? President Trump has promised to go after the worst of the worst, and that's exactly what we're doing in Minneapolis. By not working with us, Governor Walz and Mayor Fry are putting those criminals and prioritizing them over our children and our grandchildren.
Governor Walz said that he has not been given any heads up when there is going
And that's simply not true. He said that to me on the phone, too, so I'll get him the documentation that he needs so that he knows that we would love to coordinate with him. He doesn't give us access to any information on criminals, let us know who he's detained, doesn't honor our detainers, and has individuals and criminals in his jurisdiction that he won't turn over us today, too. Yes.
Hearing that the officer involved today was once before threatened by a vehicle. Can you explain the difference between that incident and today? Was a firearm discharged then? If not, what is the difference?
I won't speak to that case right now, but we can get you the details and the information on that. But the facts of the matter is he's an experienced officer. He's been in situations like this before, and he certainly has been out there and followed his training today.
Given the threat of vehicle encounters, are you going to change the way police?
You know, people need to stop using their vehicles as weapons.
Are you going to change
This domestic act of terrorism to use your vehicle to try to kill law enforcement officers is going to stop. And I'm asking the Department of Justice to prosecute it as domestic terrorism because it's clear that it's being coordinated. People are being trained.
Has there been a single case of them winning that yet, by the way? A single one? A successful domestic terrorism prosecution against a person for driving a vehicle?
Told how to use their vehicles to impede law enforcement operations and then to run over anybody who gets in their way while they go out there and try to disrupt peace and public safety. And Americans deserve better.
Secretary, are you considering sending the National Guard? Deploying the National
That hasn't been a part of the discussion. I know Governor Walz mentioned some of that earlier in his press conference, but we know we've got law enforcement officers here that will continue to work, and we're hopeful that the public recognizes that the work that we do every day makes America safe again.
Can you give
With
insight
that,
into the operation that was happening?
That's it?
we had law enforcement officers that were out there doing an enforcement action, and a vehicle got stuck in the snow, and so they had called for other people to come and help them get that vehicle out. Those officers were trying to free the vehicle when the harassment started, when the protesters were out there impeding their vehicles and preventing them from leaving the scene.
Is it a particular home or business in that intersection?
I won't speak to that.
Was there a crime that person may be committed that you were going after? You mentioned sexual predators. Well, body camera footage.
I will let the FBI decide.
Were they on target today when they were in that neighborhood?
They were returning back to headquarters, I believe, to start a new operation, had just completed one. Well, thank you. What's that? I was one of the vehicles that ICE officers were using. But remember, when we operate in a task force model. So we have other federal agencies that work with us, and we're very grateful for that. We have CBP officers, the FBI, DEA, ATF, all of those all work with us every day in a task force model, and we appreciate it. We'd love to have the state police, and we'd also love to have the Minneapolis police chief and his team be alongside of us while we're out there doing those enforcement operations. With that, we'll get you more information as it is revealed, but thank you and everybody. Let's work together to make sure that we can continue to help the city be safer, get more criminals off the streets, and ensure that our public has the opportunity to pursue the American dream in a city they can be proud of. Thank you.
They got it. They got to go after him. The Attorney General of Minnesota is just on the line, legally and morally responsible for any deaths caused by ICE as a consequence of the abstemiousness in not prosecute. This is it's the easiest prosecution in the world, and there would be no consequences for doing it.
You have been listening to Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem shaking hands with officials in the room there after taking questions from reporters in the room there in Minneapolis. about that ICE-involved shooting there. A woman shot and killed by ICE agents in Minneapolis as she's walking out of the room. And a couple of key pieces of information here. She defended the agent who fired those shots. You're seeing some of the video here as we're joined now by Jim Kavanaugh and Julia Ainsley as well, and said specifically that the woman who was killed had been stalking and impeding the work of ICE agents who were, as she said, returning back from an operation, and then proceeded to weaponize her vehicle in an attempt to cause bodily harm. That is what Secretary Kristi Noem is saying, as we're showing that video as she's speaking there. She also said that the officer who fired the shots had been involved in at least one other, which she described as vehicle ramming in the past, a couple of months ago in June, that person was hit but is out of the hospital. Not clear, obviously, if it was, she didn't make it sound clear if it was before or after the shots were fired. We will work on getting more clarity on that piece of it as you're watching the video here. It appears as though that officer is standing in the road, although, again, the video images, we're just looking through them. We're looking at what we can see and the facts as laid out in front of us here. ICE is not going to be pausing operations in Minneapolis. The secretary was clear about that, as she said.
They could make it hell for them, man. They could make it hell. If they wanted to, Minneapolis police, Jacob Frey has the ability. They could make ICE action in Minneapolis basically impossible.
That she and Governor Walz had what she described as two different viewpoints, in her words, about what exactly transpired here, with heavy criticism from the governor of Minnesota, from the mayor of Minneapolis, about the administration's response and about this officer-involved shooting here. Let me bring in now this ICE-involved shooting, Julia Ainsley here, because the secretary was very clear to say that this woman who was killed, in the words of Secretary Noem, proceeded to weaponize her vehicle. And Julia, that kind of language is critical.
Noem is harboring the agent because she definitely knows where he is. 100%. He went to a hospital, was treated, and then is now with his family, all in the span of a couple of hours. Bullshit. Absolutely not. 100% fled, got found, and was whisked away. Maybe he went to a hospital briefly. Could be for any one of a number of things, but he wasn't hit by that car. And now he's being kept somewhere. The front wheel is clearly pointed away from the agent. It won't matter unless charges are brought. Yeah, he went to a hospital so that they could say he was hospitalized. Cops do the same thing. It's the same thing that somebody who does the get hit by a car, then asks money from you for the hospital bill scam does, right? You hit a person, they get a little boo-boo, and then they run to the hospital so it looks bad. Same thing. Yeah, ambulance chasers.
Comes to the question that we've been talking about here of self-defense.
That's right. She said that she used her vehicle of protest and really what she's calling a new form of domestic terrorism to do a vehicle ramming. Now, typically, if you're covering law enforcement and you hear about a vehicle ramming, you think of something like New Orleans, New Year's Eve a year ago, where someone is purposely driving their car, using it as a vehicle into a crowd to kill as many people as possible. What we've seen in a lot of these vehicle rammings is that ICE and Border Patrol are approaching a lot of people in vehicles. We've seen people be dragged out of their vehicles, sometimes even as they're showing documentation that they are a U.S. citizen and should not be arrested for an immigration violation. And so it could be, just as we hear that assaults are up on ICE officers, what I hear from folks I talk to is that they feel less safe because they're going further. If they're approaching cars more often, maybe more people are trying to get away, and those vehicle rammings are increasing. I don't have any specifics about the other vehicle rammings that she's talking about
this
today.
Report is evil. Yeah. Genuine. It's like no news is covering this critically. There is no left-wing mainstream news in America. The most you might get is MSNBC. You know what? Genuinely, let's take a look. MS Now, as they are now called. Is there even, what is their tone?
Building. So first, let me thank you. But next, let me ask you to do what you've been doing all day and tell me what's happening on the ground.
Thanks, Nicole. I want to set the scene here. This is the place where this 37-year-old woman was shot and killed. And to give you a bit of a timeline, at around 9:50 a.m. this morning, I received a text from what's known as an ICE observer. That's a community member here in Minneapolis who watches immigration raids and alerts members of the community that Border Patrol, that immigration forces are in the area to keep people safe. That text read that somebody was shot and killed by an immigration officer. We arrived on the scene. We saw it closed off, fenced off, and we saw a large law enforcement presence. In that law enforcement presence included Border Patrol agents, ICE agents, and we saw very elevated tensions. We saw tear gas being shot between protesters and police. Then eventually we got the confirmation from DHS and from Mayor Fry that somebody was shot and killed at this very spot where these flowers are being laid right now, Nicole.
Trying to provoke someone, or you just, just trying to be doing too much, just doing too much.
Mr. Bentley, do you mind breaking down what exactly you saw this morning?
Basically, ladies trying to warn everyone ICE is in the neighborhood. Just letting them know, hey, and telling ICE, hey, you're destroying families, whatnot.
From the Hill. Pablo reports right now is getting clipped to hell and back by ASIN and is asking everyone that he can find what they have to say about this this murder.
Congresswoman, any reaction to the shooting of the woman in Minneapolis by the ICE agent?
Sadly, it's we don't know the details yet, but it was predictable that this administration would unleash unmarked and marked ICE agents terrorizing communities. It looks like somebody has lost her life. And it's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. But what's really unbelievable is this administration and the things they're willing to say immediately as a result of this, claiming that this woman is a terrorist. What's wrong with just saying we're going to investigate and find out exactly what happened here, what went wrong? Why can't they do that?
Wonderful. The problem here was the hyperbole of the administration, not the underlying institutions that caused this. So it would have been fine then if ICE had murdered that woman, but then the administration said, we're looking into it.
Is it time to start looking at the Homeland Security budget? Maybe.
Yes, and of course, the Homeland Security officer, whatever the heck her name is, the woman in the cowboy hat and many outfits.
You should know that. I forget names often, but I'm also a live streamer. You should know that off the top of your head.
Christy, no.
It's time for her to leave. Time for her to go.
That's great. That's great. This is Goldman saying that the officer needs to be fired and charged.
Gomez, any reaction to the shooting death of the lady in Minnesota by the ICE agent today?
Yeah, it was murder. It was obvious that she was just driving away. She wasn't driving into the ICE agent. I think that the Attorney General in Minnesota has to take a hard look and probably file charges against them. I think it was disgusting. I pointed out earlier that this was eventually going to happen because you have these agents from all over the country, probably without a lot of training, getting sent into these communities and ratcheting up their enforcement in a way that's pretty reckless. So was it going to endanger lives of U.S. citizens as well as people who are not documented but are not a threat? And this was exactly the fear that I always had when it came to these ICE agents, and why I'm also scared about the expansion of ICE and CBP.
This is a guy who looks like he's had a busy day. You know, that's my main take on this.
Using that $175 billion slush fund, I think it's gonna be more attacks. It's gonna be more. I would say untrained individuals that shouldn't be on our streets, and this is across the country. So I think the Attorney General has to take Minnesota has to take a hard look at it, and then Congress has to figure out if these people have immunity, that we can strip them of that immunity if they violate the law.
Okay, thank you, Congressman.
Yeah, okay. I was worried for a second if he was going to say like investigate the immunity, stripping them of the immunity. That sounds nice. That sounds nice.
Mr. Johnson, can I get any reaction to the shooting death in Minnesota by the ICE agent of the lady in the car?
It looks like a homicide for which there should be criminal charges.
Thank you,
Shooting into a moving vehicle 4 times, traffic stop, murder.
Yeah.
Mr. Speaker, what's your reaction to the Minnesota shooting from an ICE agent?
I just saw the disturbing video. Obviously, it's a serious situation. There's going to be a full investigation, as we all know and expect. Look, it appears to us, I guess, anybody who sees the video from certain angles, that the driver of the vehicle weaponized that vehicle against law enforcement officers and against bystanders. It was a dangerous situation. People make snap judgments in those situations, and it's a really sad outcome. Look, I do think that it's right. I think, I guess maybe it was Homeland or someone put out a statement that this clearly appears to be the result of this just months-long rhetoric against law enforcement and people encouraging that kind of violence. And so we call upon all the citizens of Minneapolis to be calm. We don't want anyone to be hurt. We need law enforcement to be able to do their jobs, and it's a terrible situation. But we
basically just like the pussy, toe-the-line, civility-pilled version of what the other Republicans have been saying. The Republicans, by the way, are digging their heels in the goddamn ground. Listen to this.
The bottom line is this: when a federal officer gives you instructions, you abide by them, and then you get to keep your life. And it is clear that she tried to use her vehicle as a weapon, mow over an ICE agent, and now she is dead. And her death is tragic. But at the end of the day,
this is the future they want us all to live in, you know? It doesn't matter if you're black or white, rich or poor, citizen, undocumented, whatever else, right? It doesn't matter. You will live your entire life on tippy toes around the state. This was ultimately the fate of all Germans, you know? Not saying some Germans didn't make it out worse than others. Not everyone got Holocausted, but even the most goody two-shoes, Aryan, blue-eyed, blonde-haired Germans spent the entire period of Nazi rule on their fucking tippy toes. And that doesn't just mean follow the law. That means that you live in a goddamn totalitarian society. If you even inconvenience a member of the Gestapo or the SS, if you get in their way, if they don't like you, they can just kill you. Your entire life, your entire future, all of it is at the behest of the whims of these stupid fucking animals. They could just do anything. All of these fucking bootlickers think they're going to be the ones wearing the boot. You're not, buddy. In truth, basically nobody is. It's not like ICE agents exist in some higher social caste where they're immune to everything. Their lives fucking suck, dog. They're wretched people. You see it dripping off of them. It's not like they're happy. They're not aristocrats, you know? They just have the ability to menace you at will. You inconvenience them, you get in their way. God forbid you scare them a little bit, you know? And they'll just fucking shoot you. You think it's based because we took Venezuela? That's great, dog. Well, I look forward to them being deployed to your house when you're, arrested for posting messages that are critical of Israel online. It could be anything. Oh, dude, it's so fucking based how ICE can just do whatever they want. Oh, fuck, now they're doing whatever they want at me.
I tell you, I was a sheriff for how many years? We had officer-involved shootings. I had, unfortunately, one of my own deputies shot and killed one of my brother's deputies in a blue-on-blue situation, this and that. And it's rushing to judgment, right? You got to let the situation develop and let the investigation do course. I mean, everybody wants to look at this from this angle, that angle. My God, we got to give it a little bit of time and let the situation develop.
So DHS came out too soon saying what they did?
I'm just the point I'm making is that you're asking me, what do you feel about that? Is that what you're asking? What you saw? Do you think it was right? Do you think it was wrong? I think it's too early right now to offer an opinion.
Bet hedging.
I don't like it. I don't like any of this, because what you're going to see now is you could go back now to 2020. You could see rioting. I'm sure George Soros is probably spending millions of dollars getting everybody ramped up in major cities across the country. And tonight the rats are coming out. I'm just telling you, I think the rats are coming out tonight, and you're going to see some civil unrest in this country. Tim Walz, I highly recommend you put a warning order for the National Guard. I'd get the National Guard deployed immediately. I would deploy it because I think it's going to get a little ugly. I think it's going to get a little ugly because this is, in my humble opinion, this is what the left wants. They want destruction. They want everybody just to go out there and start raising hell. They talk about peaceful protests. You're not going to see peaceful protests.
This, in a way, it feels kind of like a conciliation or a conciliatory gesture on his part, because he's not even saying that the underlying root of injustice or the cause of frustration is illegitimate. Does that make sense? Like, he's essentially saying, I'm worried about how George Soros is going to make people riot like he did during BLM, you know? He's not really adopting the narrative on this, you know? Like, theoretically, you could believe what he believes, but also think that this was a murder.
From the left. You're just not going to see it. You saw it in 2020. Look at what do we have? We burned down buildings across the entire country for months. Shameful. So,
do you think ICE should leave Minneapolis like the mayor wants?
Let me tell you something. With all the waste, fraud, and abuse, we need to send Doge and everybody in that entire state.
Oh, Doge is gone.
We've seen with the Democrats. All I'm saying is maybe you could pause a little bit. I mean, we lost a life there, right? There was a loss of life, and there's not an officer in America. There's not a law enforcement officer in this country that says, I want to go out today and legally kill somebody or shoot somebody. Why in the hell would you want to do that, right? I'm not going to question that officer's tactics or motives. It is what it is, but now you got to let the situation develop and let the investigation do time.
Hedge betting. Bet hedging.
Reaction to the shooting of the woman in Minnesota by the ICE agent.
It's absolutely heinous. And that's why I said that ICE not only needs to be held accountable, they literally need to be prosecuted when they're breaking the law like this. ICE should be prosecuted. And Todd Lyons, if you're listening, yeah, you're breaking the law. You can't enforce the law if you can't follow it.
Well, and should the DHS budget and specifically the ICE budget be looked at then?
Oh, absolutely. We got to put everything on the table to constrain these thugs from ruining America, ruining American cities.
And do you believe that it was a murder like some of your Democratic colleagues have been saying?
I don't know yet, but it sure looks like it.
Okay.
I mean, if that ain't a murder, I don't know what is.
Got it. Thank you, Congressman.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, okay. I was worried at the end there for a second that we were going to fall back on the rhetoric, but I'll take it, okay? I'll take it.
So, Congressman, any reaction to the tragic shooting?
Dude, Pablo Reports is getting at like every fucking guy on the Hill. They must be buzzing around like bees. It's like somebody knocked the hornet's nest with a stick, you know?
Death of the woman in Minneapolis by the ICE agent.
It is absolutely horrific, and my thoughts are with the family and loved ones of the woman who was killed. And we've been through this in Virginia in 2017. U.S. Park Police shot and killed Bijan Gassar, who was unarmed and driving his car. After an investigation, the Department of Justice refused to press charges against those police officers. They were, however, indicted in Virginia, in Fairfax County, by a local prosecutor. So that option exists under the law in Minnesota as well. There has to be a full investigation of this incident. The video is outrageous. I can think of no justification for the killing of this unarmed woman. There needs to be an investigation, and if that investigation bears it out, there should be charges filed against the ICE officer involved.
And is there anything Congress can do to help facilitate this investigation or gather evidence?
Well, in the Oversight Committee today, we're going to have a vote to subpoena from the Department of Homeland Security all documents related to this shooting. I hope Republicans will join Democrats in voting for that subpoena so we can ensure there's a full and fair investigation of what took place.
Is it time to start looking at, as a member of the Homeland Security Committee, is it time to start looking at their budget, as a means to kind of rein in these rogue agents and the rogue agencies?
Absolutely, 100%. Look, the mass deportation agenda of the Trump administration has caused chaos and violence.
This is all good, but it fucks me off that if the lady was black, no one was care. Can I push back on this a little bit? George Floyd was a black drug addict, and his murder prompted the largest protest in American history. Listen, if your point is that people are racist, then I wholeheartedly agree with you. But let us not be divided on the, you know what I mean? Like, there's a time and a place a little bit, right? I'm just like, she just died. We don't have to, do the comparisons and stuff.
Violence in communities across the country. It's also diverted resources from doing real investigations into child sex trafficking and gun trafficking. It needs to come to an end.
It's all good. We're all, oh, hello.
With this ICE officer and the shooting in Minneapolis, and you've been supportive of the work of ICE over the past year. Do you think that they were at fault here?
I mean, it's devastating. I mean, it's absolute tragedy. My heart goes out to her family. I mean, I don't know the circumstances. I haven't seen the actual video, but a life is lost. I mean, it's a tragedy, and absolutely. And my views, I support ICE about deporting criminals. I don't support and understand if you want to target otherwise hardworking people. I don't support that. I never have on that. I remain pro strongly immigration, and that's never going to change. So here we are now, where a woman's dead, and that's tragedy. And we'll know the circumstances. I'm not going to make any judgment other than just express my sympathy for the family. I mean, just what a tragedy.
The mayor
He hasn't found out yet whether or not the victim was Palestinian.
Minneapolis says that ICE should get the F out of their city. Do you think they should get out?
I mean, I'm not that close to the kind of violence and the tragedy, so I don't want to judge that. But for me, I think it's all probably always more helpful to turn the temperature down and just withhold, the kinds of extremes to say, hey, let's everybody, turn the temperature down. Honestly, whether that's coming from some kinds of the rhetoric from Secretary Noem or the president, or whether the mayor or governor. It's like, really, let's just turn down the temperature, and we can't forget someone's lost their life, and now we have to investigate the circumstances, because that should never happen.
Well, that's great, Fetterman. I'm not going to lie. I actually did expect it to be worse. Oh, hello, AOC.
Congresswoman, can I real quick get your reaction to the shooting death in Minnesota of the woman by the ICE agent?
This is what, it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. This is what we've been warning about for a very long time, and it is, it's tragic to say, but from the moment that, from the moment that this Congress decided to authorize and explode ICE's budget, they are accountable to no one. It's important that people know that ICE has less accountability than virtually any law enforcement agency in the United States. And yet they are some of the most well-funded. They are operating with impunity, and we just saw them murder an American citizen in cold blood in the street. And despite whatever lies that the president wants to say about what was happening in this, you can see what happened for yourselves. They shot a woman in the head in cold blood on the street. I hope that this incident is prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, and this is an agency that must be reined in.
Thank you, Congresswoman.
Or eliminated entirely, one would hope. One would hope.
Browns. So this is now turned into what our greatest fear is, and has been for a long time around ICE, that this will be used as an anti-civilian force, that it has no accountability. At the end of the day, what we saw today is a murder. And murders in cold blood need to be prosecuted.
I don't know, man. I don't know. Right now, the eyes of the world are on the Minnesota State Attorney General, who is a progressive, by the way. That's where it is. I want charges, and when that ICE agent inevitably flees, travels across the country, so on, hides on federal property or whatever, I want the manhunt for him to be covered as aggressively as the OJ car chase. I want it to be 24/7 news. Because what do you mean a federal thug can just straight up murder a random mom, get charged for murder, and then the federal government will hide him from the state prosecutor?